it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you episode 11 of my Copic coloring series. This first little image is Rose from the Bloom Kit from the Greeting Farm, and I colored her up with red hair. Then I decided I was going to try it again. So the next day I colored her up again, adding more highlights and more depth of shadow. And if you're interested in the particular Copic colors I use, please check out my blog post. Why I'm showing you this is because I wanted you guys to see the comparison. The left side image is pretty, I think, and if you wanted a kind of more flat, bright colored image, that works great. But if you really want depth of color and a real range of colors in hair, it's really good to push that envelope. So I'm going to color up Jolene for you here. She's also from the Greeting Farm's Bloom Kit, and I'm going to color her up as a dirty blonde. That's not like a light blonde. It's got light yellows, but it also has some browns in it. So this first layer of color I'm putting down is Y21. And I'm trying to just make sure I hit all the areas that would be the lightest in color. I'm obviously going over more of her hair than just where the highlights are, but that's okay because this next color I'm putting in, I'm marking in where the shadows would be. This is where I think the deepest shadows could be, and I'm taking a kind of mid-tone yellow-orange color. This is Y24, and this is one of my favorite colors to use for hair coloring for blonde or brown hair. And I'm using this mid-tone color because just in case I'm not getting the shading correct, I know that I have darker colors that I can add to this image, covering up some of these areas if I've gotten any of the shadowing wrong. So I'm going in, putting in little flicking strokes where I think the hair direction is going to be going. I'm making sure that the cast shadow underneath the flower is going to be shadowed. And these little sections of hair, I am outlining kind of where the stamped lines are. All of those lines are getting this kind of mid-tone shadowing. This is my kind of trial basis shadow adding. This next color I'm adding is the darkest shadow. I'm feeling pretty confident about where I've laid in my shadow, so I'm now using an E29. This seems really dark for blonde hair, so it's a little scary to put down, but I assure you that at the end of all of this, she's going to look like a gorgeous blonde. I'm making sure that I'm going in the direction that the hair is growing, so all of my hair lines are flicking motions in a curved direction, and that's why you see me turning the image around and around so that I can flick kind of away from me, which I find to be easier than flicking toward me. I am making sure that each one of these little ponytail hair segments are all getting this shadowing underneath the little flower in her hair, and also on the underside of each of those little hair segments. I'm also turning the image around so I get the shadowing coming from all directions underneath that flower because that flower is going to cast a shadow. And around her bangs, I'm making sure that the tips are getting nice deep shadows because I want the center area that's kind of rounded, the biggest area in her bangs, to get that pop of color, that brightness. That's really the key to making these hair coloring exercises as successful as possible, and that's to try and get that full range of light and dark. That gives you the most pop. And now I'm just trying to blend in those areas a little bit. So I'm taking a Y26, I believe at this point, and I'm trying to connect the lighter colors, the Y21, the lightest color, with the medium first shaded color, the YR24, and I'm trying to connect those light colors together so that it isn't so jarring. And all these extra flick marks that I'm putting in now adds to the textured look of her hair and gives it a more realistic look. So even though it seems like I'm barely making any changes, overall at the end, you'll really see a difference because all of these rounds of flicking. So I want to share with you guys kind of my thought process on how I pick the colors to layer and in which order I go. So for this image for a blonde, I started with the lightest color, Y21, and I did that to make sure I hit all the areas that I think should be highlighted the most. And I know where I overdo it, I can cover that up later with mid-tone shadows. I next go to the mid-tone shadow color, like YR24 in this case, and I lay in all the areas that I think should be in shadow, like the edges of the face, underneath cast items like the flowers in her hair, on the tips of her bangs, those things that will add a three-dimensionality. Then I go to the darkest color and re-emphasize all those shadowed areas. In this case, that was E29. Then whatever mid-tone colors I am planning on using, I start blending them in so that I can kind of blend in the lightest colors to the darkest colors. And in this case, that was Y26 and E25. Then I'll go back in with the mid-tone shadow color to reestablish those shadowed areas. And all of these different layers really add to that texture, that hair texture that is so important to making realistic hair coloring. And then lastly, I always go back to the darkest color and reestablish that darkest shadow, because that darkest color sometimes gets bleached out by the lighter colors that you add afterwards. Every time it's the same sequence: light, medium, dark, back to medium, back to dark. I hope you've enjoyed this process video and that it's helpful to you guys. Here's a little cutie all colored up. If you enjoyed this process video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.